Broadcasting Network News, St. Maarten Insights News that matters to you.
Correct.
And we'll do that on Thursday, right? We were away on vacation, of course, but I wanted to spend a little time this week because I know we're just about to head into parliamentary elections again, and we need to make sure we're educated and informed, and I think that is. I think that is always important. And with that, we've invited our very good friend, Melissa Gumbs, the Honorable Melissa Gumbs, Member of Parliament. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Soc. Morning to you and Emil.
The world feels like it's coming unglued, and I think Sint Maarten is no different these days.
No, not at all.
So, but I will say this: if you're planning to come visit us, if you're coming to have a good tourist experience here, as a visitor, as a tourist, the experience really has not changed. Most of the major resorts and hotels, all of them, either all have solar power, all have generator backup power. The experience tends to just be kind of normal-ish. You might have a little bump here or there where someone doesn't experience, but that's just called life.
Yeah, and mostly you'll just get the background hum of the generators But as a resident, it's there. But as a tourist, you probably won't notice it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're running. So every Monday morning at 8:00-ish, our generator here at Island Etiquette kicks off and runs a full generator test and throws the whole station onto generator, so you might be able to hear the light hum in the background. I don't know. So it's just no big deal. We're working our way through it. MP, welcome.
Yeah, here I am back again. I was supposed to be here with Raeyhon Peterson, but he has the flu. Unfortunately, seems to be going around. So I want to wish him a speedy recovery. But we decided not to take the risk to pass it along to me or to you guys, actually, because you got a lot of work coming up in the next few weeks covering this election.
Appreciate the consideration.
Yes. And Ray is now the head of
Chief of Staff of VROMI. Yeah.
So he's Chief of Staff in the cabinet.
In the cabinet, yes, for VROMI.
Yeah. So, quick question: Parliament is supposed to discussions about whether that would happen or not. What's the status?
So it was requested by one of the opposition members of Parliament to cancel the recess, but ultimately what the Presidium decided was that either way, during a recess, you can always have a recall of the MPs for emergency meetings and such. So we've decided to move ahead with that practice. We had meetings last week, which was our first week of recess. We are supposed to be reconvening the discussion on ENIA meeting this week or early next week, from what I've understood. So it's always possible to still interrupt a recess to have those critical meetings that need to happen. So we've made an agreement to do that.
And I guess with elections pending,
no one's going anywhere anyways.
No one's traveling.
yeah, basically.
So you're in a situation now where you're in the coalition.
Yeah.
You're partners with 3 other parties, but yet we're in campaign season, so you also need to differentiate yourself from those other parties. So you're how do you manage that?
I think it's about, especially when you're in a coalition, it's about looking for where the similarities are, trying to highlight the fact that, you weren't really given a chance as a coalition to govern. A 17-day fall of government is a record for us, I think, for anywhere. And I think that's what we are also, focusing on. We work pretty well, within the coalition that we're in on certain topics. In particular, when it comes to finance, I think the finance minister is even maybe stricter than we are when it comes to public spending and to just kind of sharing what is the reality of government's financial situation. So it's really just about finding that balance. I think there will always be differences, but the intention is, of course, in any coalition, you have to make it work until, of course, maybe it can't work, and then you have to part your ways. But so far, the focus is on what are the similarities and how can we then get the mandate back from the people to continue trying to do the work that we started to do.
Right.
So I think the burning topic right now is GE.
No, don't use the word burning.
Yeah.
Burning is a dangerous word when it comes to GV.
The hot topic is GEDE, our public utility that is responsible for the production and distribution of water and electricity on the
Yep.
north side of St. Maarten. As we all know, there was an immediate plan, a short-term plan, and
Yes.
a long-term plan. The immediate plan was the delivery of 10 megawatts containerized solutions that were rented for a period of 3 months.
Yes.
They're scheduled to be live by the end of July, according to the original estimate. And in addition to that, generator 8 is supposed to be back online, producing 3 megawatts by the middle of July. By the 15th of July was the original dates that were set forth. So the question really now becomes, are we whole? And then let me continue. And then by the end of August, 20 megawatts of lease-to-own containers are supposed to be available and connected up and functioning. At which point, once the 20 is online, the 10 rent-to-own would go away. Are we on schedule for?
Based on what the Prime Minister shared, we are. But I do know I've asked, the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of VROMI, Patrice Gumbs, to also kind of try to ascertain a bit more specific information in terms of arrival and connectivity to the grid. Because of course there was some works that GB themselves had to do to be able to even land the container generators, where they needed to be able to connect them up. So hopefully that we can get an update on that within the next 2 days, or even today, to be honest, just to kind of know, because people are nervous, people are worried, and I have to say, I don't have a generator at home, so I'm in it with them as well. In defiance, we have the added complication of decreased water pressure.
Yeah.
And yesterday there were some areas from the hill that had no water at all for hours during the day, which of course, I've said it before, and it's not really a high level concept about, cascading failures of interconnected systems. And that's basically what you have here. And that's why I asked questions as well to the Minister of TEAB regarding the health of the telecoms network, because all of this on off can also fry site equipment. It can fry server equipment, so I'm concerned about how is that. And I've already heard the complaints from Telcel users then, about the slowdown of the LTE network and everything. So it's concerning.
We feel it here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There is so much technology that runs behind this. As a matter of fact, on-offs here caused such a jolt to one of our, and we've got 3 pretty big rack-mounted UPSs in here. So I'm never having a single point of failure.
Yeah.
Or try to, and it caused such a jolt. It literally, we had to reinstall the firmware.
Yeah.
On that UPS. We thought it melted it. It was brand new.
Yeah,
I just bought it.
And that's what I was going to say. At least at least it's still working, because
Yeah.
I've heard people say that their UPSs have just fried. For me, I tend to leave the house and just unplug the critical, what I can unplug,
Right.
TV, PlayStation, my PC and stuff, AC units, because
Yeah.
you never know, because when the power comes back, it comes back with such a surge that it's also problematic. So my fridge is holding strong, but we'll see.
So just for clarity, the generator at GB with the crankshaft issue, they were sort of testing.
What
and they
number is that's that?
19, I think.
19, I think.
So
Yeah.
do you know what's the status on possibility of that coming back?
No, I don't have I don't have an update on 19. I believe it wasn't. Is it the crankshaft? I have to go back and check, because there's been such there's so many questions back and forth that I myself am asking. So I don't have an update on when that's going to be back online. My main concern now is that the temporary solution is, arriving sooner rather than later, and that they can fast track the installation to hook that up.
So perhaps sort of a governance question, right? Most of the conversations have been the Prime Minister speaking on behalf of GB.
Yeah.
But yet GB is actually the one signing all contracts, making all payments.
Yeah.
So, is this sort of a case of government sitting, in the seat of GB? How does
I think government has been communicating just to be, because I mean, at the end of the day, there are one electricity company. They are, public owned. So I think it's just to receive the information. Of course, the supervisory board and the management are the ones that are making the decisions, as you said, signing off. I know the supervisory board provided authorization to the interim manager to sign off on the solutions that are coming forward, that are pending. For me, though, I have urged the prime minister to just remain in touch and on the ball with the supervisory board and with the management of GEBE. Because I've said it in public, in Parliament as well, publicly, that I'm concerned about the information, because it's always seemed like you get one piece now and then later on it turns into something else, and I don't think it doesn't build trust between government, coalition, and GEBE, and it doesn't build trust between the public and the management of GEBE. So I think that to me is also very important, restoring that trust, because without it, you're not going to get anywhere.
I hate to sound like it would seem to me that it has been years since we've had public trust of GEBE. And
You're not wrong, yeah.
And quite frankly, what they did to me personally at the town hall meeting, the very first town hall candid conversation, is they basically said, sorry, there'll be no filming or video recording or anything, and I refused. And they sent the henchman over from the back of the room to tell me I had to stop recording. I said to him, listen, you can call the police. I'm a member of the media, constitutional right to do this. And they stopped the meeting and called me out. It would not continue until I stopped. Yeah. And you know what? I said, listen. So I continued, and we had a recording. I had a source that recorded the audio after the two videos that I had.
Yeah.
So I had all of that, and we shared it all. I waited for them to publish, their supposed unedited version.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute that they published their supposed unedited version, I published what happened in the room.
Right.
Legitimately, all of it. And you know what? I'm sorry. They produced this big edited production. That's not what the people want. That's not what the people deserve to see and hear. And what I don't understand is, when is government, as the owner, on behalf of the people of St. Maarten, the taxpayers and the citizens and the residents of this island, when is the government going to finally say to GEBE, enough is enough?
Yeah.
You're all fired. We need real management in there.
Yeah.
Well, and on that line, the supervisory board is missing a number of... So, I mean, this is an opportunity for government to put forth candidates and perhaps bring a bit of a different perspective into the supervisory board.
Well, from Parliament's perspective, I try to let, as you say, from a governance perspective, I try to suggest and just, communicate my thoughts then about that with the government. But ultimately, it is up to the COM to decide how they're going to move forward when it comes to GB's management and their supervisory board. Do I think that right now putting in board members makes sense, or even finding board members right now? I'm not sure. I think that's still going to take a while either way, because they have to go through that, their process, and corporate governance council has to get involved and such. For me, it's just about demanding clearer communication, because you can't, make unilateral decisions without there being some kind of, well, this is why I'm telling you now, step away, because there has to be, we do things knee jerk, I think, a lot here. Previous governments have done that. And I think that always leads to problems down the road. And I'm also trying to, make sure that we avoid any further problems down the road. But it really does depend on, demanding that information is given to the public.
And okay. And does GB have the finances to execute all these contracts?
They have said they do. I, unlike some of my colleagues, do not have personal access to GB's bank account, so I don't know what the totals are. They have said that they can. The one question I have asked, if anyone tuned into the meeting where the Prime Minister shared the solutions that were coming, is that the management of GB said that the solution would come at no impact to the consumer, which I said that sounds very odd to me. And that is one question that I'm looking forward to receiving the answer on. And actually this week, hopefully we will get the answers from the Prime Minister's office, because they were due last week. So they are late, but I'm hoping that today we can get them in Parliament so that we're aware of what they've responded to that particular question. Me in particular, I want to know.
So perhaps going back more to your parliamentary role, there's been some discussions about this agreement that was previously signed with, I think, Grid Market.
Yes.
Can you explain what's the issue behind it and how it impacts it?
But maybe we could just level. We've heard the term grid market we've heard it bounced around. Can we just go back to like ground zero?
Explain what
it is, what it's all about.
So grid market essentially was an MOU was signed by the previous administration with grid market with the intention to prepare an energy roadmap for Sint Maarten. And then on top of that energy roadmap, it was also as part of the MOU that they would help get us along that roadmap. So in terms of finding financing, in terms of finding partners that could execute the projects then that would come out of this renewable energy roadmap. In essence, they're like a broker. It's not unheard of. I know from my contacts in Saba that they went a similar route with a different company to execute their 2 solar parks, and things went very well with them. So using a broker for these types of projects is not unheard of. The problem is that from the very announcement of grid market, I've been asking the former Prime Minister, was GB involved? And it's ultimately when she answered me, it was, no, they were not involved in the signing of the MOU. They were not. And then you find out that they also refused to provide information to grid market, build said energy roadmap. And then, you also, if you read the TNO report, there's also information lacking from there. And it goes back to what I've said, and this is no disrespect to the hard workers at GEBE at the plant level, etc., but more from a management perspective over the years. It's been a sort of general approach to just engage in protectionism. Because why are you not sharing information, to take us out of this, archaic approach to energy? There has to be collaboration. So I kept asking, why would you sign an MOU where your one electricity company is not involved in any type of information providing any type of data collection and data, providing data to the grid market so that this roadmap could have been built. They did the same thing.
Are they paid a fee for their services?
I will review the MOU again. Of course, they will get a commission based on whatever solution came out of it, which is much how I expect a brokerage situation to work. But of course, there has been no solution. So I've been asking as well, what are the financial consequences for the country in the event that this MOU is not fully executed?
Dr. Soc comes from the brokerage world, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the tricky things about using a broker is they actually have no incentive to save you any money. If their fee is a commission of total cost of the project, they actually have an incentive for that project to be as expensive as possible.
Right.
So
it's just like, when you sell your house, right?
Yeah.
The realtor wants you to sell the house for the highest possible price because they make the most money.
Yeah.
Well, you as the buyer want to negotiate the lowest possible price, right? So you end up in all of this stuff that might not be in the best interest of the people of Sint Maarten.
Yeah.
And historically, a lot of the issues and why some politicians have had legal troubles is indeed because they do put these intermediaries in place who take a success fee, a commission, a referral fee.
And I think that's more, and that's for me more of a due diligence problem and just a personal character failure, because I think that intermediary relationships can work. Like I said, again, if I look at Saba, it worked well there. I think it's just about doing.
Should there be a tender process?
I think so. I think, however you go about signing any type of MOU, you should at least talk to more than one partner, most definitely.
Like the generators, for example.
Yeah.
Because there's some rumors going around.
Yeah.
And people love melee. that there's some money being.
That was also one of the questions asked in Parliament. So I'm waiting for the official
What,
answers
was there a tender process
from the Prime
for
Minister.
generator? Because a lot of times when St. Maarten gets into these emergency situations, like after Hurricane, all of a sudden you find out afterwards.
Which, in an emergency situation, I think that there are ways to deviate while still being correct. And that's why you usually have these types of retroactive investigations that then say, okay, well, we deviated, but you went completely left. So now there has to be consequences. That's always possible. So I'm hoping that I'm hoping that the answers from the Prime Minister also shed some light on how finding these companies went. When it comes to the short, the mid, and the long-term solutions from GEBE, so that we can have some type of, because again, in an emergency situation like what we are still in, I can understand and agree with deviating a bit, but it should not be such a wild deviation that we end up in problems further down the line.
Right.
So it seems to me, and I'll be honest, the Prime Minister sat in these very seats as I asked him to come in the day that they had the announcement about what the immediate short-term, long-term solutions were, and I asked him to please come in and share, and we had a pretty lengthy conversation. I asked him if he would provide for me the names of the two companies, the ones where the rented short-term, immediate-term solutions came from, and where the lease-to-own or rent-to-own containers were coming from, and he readily provided that information to me, and I'm in the process of doing my due diligence.
Yeah.
So I mean, I asked, I received information. So I want to be completely blunt and clear about that. There was no, as a member of the meeting, when I asked the question, if I didn't get an answer, I got the song and dance and the shuffle that went with it, I would be concerned. I didn't receive any of that. And I think it's important for people to know that.
Yeah.
But remember, he's reporting. He's reporting on what GB has done.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, because if I understand correctly, it wasn't his job to go and identify possible suppliers and evaluate.
No, GB is who.
did that.
Yeah.
He's only reporting what was done.
What GB informs. Yeah.
So the question actually goes to GB. Was there a process? Was there a search process? Was there a tender process? Was there a broker, a middleman involved?
It would seem to me that having lived through this, just like everybody else at this point, it was almost like my perception, my feeling was that GB was kind of just said, okay, sit down and shut up, and you're going to do as you're told, to a certain degree, by the government. And quite frankly, I think we need more of that, right? Because the management of GEBE has proven they are not capable of running the power plant.
Yeah, in this current crisis, there are ways I would have handled it, but again, I try not to sit on the seat of any minister. So I can just advise and hope that it's taken into consideration on how to move forward, especially with I tell people all the time, I have a background for private sector, from corporate, where there are many things that happen in this country from a government perspective that people would have been fired already, or or just removed from their position or shifted or so. And I think we are uncomfortable doing that sometimes because of the small community we live in. But I think that's when we need to be most comfortable with doing it, to be honest.
So let's bring it back to elections.
Yeah.
This is the first time that PFP has been in government, that you've had that inside perspective, albeit a short perspective. Has it changed PFP's view and approach towards governing, campaigning? Has it changed your?
I think it's made us a little more aggressive in terms of campaigning, mainly because what has been discovered is such just just gross negligence, a lack of attention to just basic policy to be able to return, to have that opportunity to govern for the people, because it's right in the sense of any solution is not going to. Serious attention is paid to governance, to ethical decision making, to stamping out corruption, and to just moving forward with the best interest of the people, all of the people at heart.
I can't disagree with you. The ultimate defense is always the truth.
Yes.
And any lawyer will tell you that. So I want to go somewhere that is probably an uncomfortable topic, but I'd like to go here. There is a perception, right, out there in the world that much of the younger generation, right, millennial is the wrong word, but it's that group and the group that is slightly older than the millennials, right? Where you want the perception is that folks want of that generation they want to see their name on the top of the org chart. they want to be in charge, but the willingness to actually be responsible and accept accountability for your actions is not necessarily there. How does the PFP demonstrate to the voters that we're not that? Because you're a bunch of very young and talented professionals, but how do we counter?
I think well, first of all, I think that's learned behavior. I think that, many young persons go into this arena, maybe with good intentions, some probably definitely with not. And they kind of get caught up in what has been there. And I can imagine if you're in a party whose whole ideology and personality has been based on skirting accountability and shirking responsibility, that you kind of get infected with that. We have purposefully built PFP around wanting to hold people accountable, first of all, and then wanting to also be held accountable. We take a lot of criticism. Persons are, they criticize that there's been no legislation, etc., that we've brought forward, outside of the LBHAM and such. But I always try to say, I think it's also about explaining to people without, you don't have to get upset about it, because it's constructive criticism. When it's not constructive, then yes, I tend to ignore it. But constructive criticism gives me the opportunity to explain this is why, this is our viewpoint on it, and this is how we intend to change it. And again, people people say, well, you guys don't have solutions or so. And I'm like, the real solution is to actually approach governance from an ethical perspective, from wanting to make the right decision, even if it's not popular. And to push forward with that and explain to people, like you said, the best defense you have is the truth. That's literally what we're seeing right now, is that a lot of things have been sugar-coated by previous administrations, not just the last one, but others as well. And now you have to peel back the layers of sugar to kind of reveal the reality. People cannot make informed decisions. People cannot plan their life around sugar-coated, reality. So that's basically how we try to counter that, and to say, we lean on the advice of those who've come before us. In the party as well, we have a wealth of advice available to us, and my dad and others. So it's you have to take that and apply it to this situation now, because of course they're coming from a time where it was a little, the 90s and early 2000s, but we have to update the advice that they gave to make it suit what is the reality that we have today.
And for those that don't know, your dad was former prime minister.
Yes.
Of Sint Maarten, Marcel Gumbs. It is a challenging time, and we've used the word truth a few times.
Yeah.
And as I'm starting to see the billboards go up, I'm seeing anything but the truth in my own neighborhood. My own business neighborhood, I'm seeing lots of falsehoods go up. How do we get the real truth out there? What do we tell? What do you want? What's the message?
I would like people to use their discernment, look at the reality of what the last 4 years was. The persons that have broken this government within 17 days are asking you to give them opportunity to go back in there to do what, I have no idea, because you had 4 years. And I know that COVID has been used as the reason why. But I don't think that that's a valid excuse, to be honest, because COVID should not have stopped writing, policies, getting your stuff together, getting your ducks in a row, so that when the crisis was predominantly over, you could have hit the ground running on certain areas. Everybody was working remotely, so I think that use your discernment to see past the glass and to see past the sugar, because that is also what you're getting. What you're seeing a lot is, I can fix it, but you were there, you had stability. And I think too, I also like to mention the role that the previous coalition had in breaking this government. Everyone from the former prime minister go down has been kind of, well, we're not responsible for it. No, you are. You are, because no one jumps a ship without having somewhere to land. Now they've left the young man out in the cold. But at the end of the day, nobody makes such a decision without feeling like there's some comfort of where they're going to be able to go after. A door has to be opened for someone to come in to a house, and that's essentially what I think occurred. And I lay equal blame on all parties. So I think people need to really look and examine, like, was this a valid fall of government in 17 days? You blame everything on people who have literally been sitting there for 17 days. Is a little crazy to me. And I think persons are waking up to that reality. And I don't think that the wool that they're trying to pull over people's eyes is working anymore.
I mean, I'll tell you this, as an individual, right, as a resident, it seems to me, it screams to me that this was an unabashed attempt to just get back in power at whatever cost was possible.
Politics.
Whatever
in Sint Maarten.
Whatever we needed to do to be able to be in charge.
Yeah.
So Melissa, your closing words. I know you're on a timeline. How do you differentiate PFP? And as we talk to voters, let's take like the GB issue. The outgoing government saying no, it's not our fault, and so the people are hearing so many different stories.
Yeah.
They don't know what to believe anymore, and then they just say, well, they're all liars. Why should I bother to vote?
And I know that frustration is there, and I understand it. If I was not running, I too would be questioning, am I going to vote or not? But ultimately, voting gives you the right to hold people accountable. And I had a good conversation yesterday with a potential voter who's very frustrated. Voted historically for one of the previous coalition parties, and now has decided they're not voting at all. And I know that tends to be the MO as well for some of their supporters. When they get frustrated, they're like, well, if I'm not voting for them, I'm just not going to vote at all. That's what they want you to do. They want you to stay home and sit in your frustration and not come out and put your vote somewhere else and put your confidence in a new party that has never been given the opportunity to really govern, but that has been transparent, that is communicating at a high level and letting people know this is the reality of what it is. And any solution brought by anyone is not going to work until you have good governance, ethical and integral persons in there making good decisions for the right reasons, even if they're unpopular, and being honest with you about that. And we pride ourselves on being the party to do that, and we will continue to do so. So take a chance, put your faith in PFP on August 19th.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your comment.
And the Member of Parliament, the Honorable Melissa Gumbs. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
The door is always open. You know that. Take care of yourself. It is 8:49, 8:50, right?